It's episode 147, Carpet Pythons and More, with Mike Pennell of Python and a Pear Tree. And some people are here. I'm here. So the sponsor shout-outs, vettoday.com for all of your testing needs. Use code #ShitHappens with the exclamation point for $5 off the crypto panel if you have a suspicious poop. We don't like suspicious poops at Holdback Right Podcast. vettoday.com. Let's do the sponsors. Kelley, he has hognose hatching. I think it's storm cloud stuff, but also like super Arctic albino stuff. So if you're interested in a hognose, please check him out. Small Town Exotics. He has his little Patreon thing so you can build up store credit with your Patreon payments. We love that. Check out Small Town Exotics Patreon. Bravo Zulu Ball Pythons. She's our veteran woman-owned breeder. She breeds mostly puzzle stuff, and she should have some more puzzle stuff available this year. So please check her out on Morph Market. Stoneage Ball Pythons. It appears he shaved his beard, or at least controlled it, looking very dapper. He's one of our Pacific Northwest ball python breeder buddies, Justin Brill. Check him out. Andrew, Powerhouse Pythons. He breeds ball pythons, leopard geckos, rodents. He sells gopher cocoa, and he's getting into Stimsons, and he got a turtle. I think they're cherry heads. Very cool. We love that. Thank you, Andrew, Powerhouse Pythons. Gray Family Snakes, our Alabama family breeders. Lots of VPI, Xanthic, DG stuff coming down the pipes. So please follow them on Morph Market, and they're looking forward to vending in Daytona again. And Chris at Venus Reptilia, he's our most species-rich sponsor. Should have lots of pits, some balls, some MBKs, and locality boas coming up. I think he has 2 things on auction right now. I think they're ball pythons, though. Chris, thank you for sponsoring Venus Reptilia. All right, I did it. Whew. Every time. It's a struggle. All right. How are you doing? Can I call you Mike? I didn't ask.
It doesn't.
You go by Mike or Michael? Okay.
Michael. Either way.
All right. Can you give I don't know, maybe the 60-second elevator pitch for your business? Like what species you keep and where you live?
Okay. Well, Michael Pennell, owner of Python and a Pear Tree. I live in Tyler, Texas. I breed ball pythons, a lot of Australian species, carpet pythons, jungles, that kind of stuff, Antaresia, Stimsons, children's and spotteds, have some Angolans, Russian rat snakes, gray banded kings, some Brewster County locality glossy snakes. As far as I know, the first one ever to produce them last year in captivity. Some Arizona mountain kings, Japanese rats, white-sided black rats, hognose, savu pythons, and probably something else I'm forgetting, but just recently got into northern blue-tongued skinks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep, I'm enjoying those.
That's quite a variety. Was that on purpose, or did it sort of happen on accident? Were you oh, I just want to try that out, and I want to try that out?
It kind of both. I always like just snakes in general. Some stuff sells better than others. Always love carpet pythons. One of my first loves was carpets, and just like to focus on that and Australian stuff. But then it was just having a variety. It's I always looked at it kind of like investments. You don't ever put all your eggs into one basket. So if you're just a ball python breeder, you have a lot of other people you're competing with. If you only do corn snakes, you kind of limit yourself in the market. But if you do corn snakes and you do, some yellow rat snakes and you do Gulf hammocks or something like that, you open yourself up to a little bit of more variety to catch, other potential customers. So and blood pythons. I do have some blood pythons as well. So
and berms. You forgot berms.
Oh yeah, forgot the dwarf berms. Yeah, wrote it all down.
All right. Well, Yeah, your table has always been really fun to look at to me. Just because you never know what's going to be there. It could be something, and that's a novelty in itself. Because a lot of times people are vending the same kind of stuff because that's all the inventory they have. So it's like the same.
Yeah.
Do you, because you have all that variety, do you bring different species to different shows because you know they do better at those shows? Or you just bring what you have?
Generally, I bring what I have, but we do. For instance, I went to the Herps West Monroe a couple weeks ago. That's just kind of a newer beginning market. I really want to bring all my really expensive Grim combination ball pythons, just because I don't see that selling. I've already done it, once before. So I bring like a base Grim and maybe a Grim and another gene. But as far as like 3-4 gene combos or more expensive stuff, you just kind of learn to base the market. And then sometimes it's like, hey, this is everything I've got. I'm gonna take anything and everything I've got available. And then maybe even some holdback stuff just to kind of fill up the case, price it high. If it sells, it sells. But
Like if you're like, are there some shows where like carpets do really well? Because a lot of times there's like a carpet guy or two at a show, but I'm like, is he doing okay? I don't know. Like, because like, or whatever. Like if something's particularly like niche, do they just sometimes swing and miss, and you just take 3 to every show and just see where they sell? Or
yeah, I would say as far as the carpets, like there's been shows that I've done for several years now where I was the only carpet python breeder. I do a show in Kansas. I'm the only carpet python breeder. There's been a few more pop up. A lot of shows I've been now with Paul Mobile, Mobile Xotics. He does some carpet pythons as well. So a lot of times at the shows here in the South, you're going to see him and I partner up, do shows together. He kind of has a mix of ball pythons and carpets. And we both try to sell each other stuff, just depending on what they're looking for, because he's got some things that I don't have. But just carpet pythons in general, like you said, it's been kind of niche. And it honestly is trying to get that first potential carpet python customer. You kind of get past the stigmas of the little bitey, angry worm, type thing, to the adult colors normally don't look like the baby colors. They do change a little bit as they get older. So a lot of stuff to consider in that when you're trying to sell the little ones. But once they get one, then they realize how much more interactive they are, more inquisitive, and then they kind of search out to get another one.
So you think you're mostly like converting ball python keepers to carpets, or do you think do you think you sell a decent amount to someone who's new, like they don't have anything and they get a carpet?
I have sold a few to somebody just new. In general, it's somebody that's wanting a little bit more. So they've had a ball python, they've had a corn snake. They want to advance their husbandry techniques, get into something a little more challenging. Not that carpets are really hard to take care of. They're pretty bulletproof, but it's, they just want something more challenging, because we all like ball pythons, but at the end of the day, the joke in the community is they're lap dogs. You get out and they just kind of sit there for a little while, pet rocks. People want more than that sometimes. They want something that displays in a cage. Ball python most times going to stay hidden all day long. Carpets, colubrids, stuff like that, they're out and about, cruising, hanging out. You see them during the day. And I think that's what a lot of people are starting to kind of come into, opening their reptile keeping into doing some other stuff other than just ball pythons.
100%. I see Popwin carpets. I'm assuming you do jungles, right?
Yes.
Do you think people prefer jungles still because like they remember that jungles grow up yellow and black or whatever? Or do you think?
I would say a lot of it's jungles. That really is. I think what catches everybody's attention outside of a coastal jaguar, just like the natural pattern is a jungle. I'll be at shows and somebody will come up and say, well, you have any of those black and yellow ones? So I'm like, are you referring to a jungle? You know, because most of my projects have always been based on coastals. I had jungles years and years ago, kind of sold them off to focus on coastal carpets because at the time, if there wasn't a lot of people selectively breeding coastal carpets for color and pattern and different things, if most people knew what the jungle carpets looked like 40 years ago when they were coming in, they looked nothing like they do now. Through selective breeding, you've got, you know, the more vibrant screaming yellows and, you know, really dark blacks. A lot of we're able to get like some Palmerston locality jungles. They're more gold and black, which is more typical of what you actually would find in Australia. But that's not what draws most people's attention. They like that yellow and black. So that kind of gets them. And then when you can start showing them some different stuff like the pop ones or some of the coastals with the red coastals, it starts to pick up a little bit different following. And they really start kind of jiving for something else other than just the black and yellows.
Okay. But do you think, I don't know, like if a ball python person wanted to diversify, starting with jungles would be a good start because they sort of sell themselves for someone who knows what it will be?
I would say that in kind of typical to size. So, you know, a good size male is probably 5.5, 6 foot, female 6.5, you know, can go a little bit bigger. But, you know, and then we've seen big ball pythons that get 6.5, really big ones. So it's comparable size. You start getting coastals, they start getting bigger. So the jungles and the Papuan carpets both stay smaller outside of inlands. And that's kind of a whole other market because they're a little more pricier than the other two. So, yeah, I kind of like I've already got the cage space. I've been housing ball pythons. I can set these kind of up in a tub system. And, you know, and then if you want to set something for display, you don't have to have a really massive size cage for displaying those animals. So I think it does and does open up for the fact of kind of being able to sell themselves, especially like bringing an adult to the show, really show what the adult colors look like, have pictures. It does help.
Yeah. Pictures are critical. I've been like trying to figure out ways to sell rat snakes in general, and maybe even corn snakes, because like Lee Abbott takes literal pictures, he prints it off and puts them on top of each deli stack, and he's like, "This is what this stack grows up to," and that would be good. But I was like, I don't know. Like I want to like do maybe either cards or like a book that are actually printed off and are like, this is this line, and it's like a big business card basically. Because like corn snakes change a lot too. Jap rats change a lot. Nobody knows what they look like. They look terrible as babies.
Yeah, and even with carpet pythons, they're so variable that you can say, okay, this is what your dam and sire look like, but that's really no indication that those jungles are really going to turn out that nice or nicer. You're going to have a couple uglier ones that just don't color up like it, you know, that everybody expects. You're going to have a lot of nice ones, and then you're going to have some that are exceptional. It's just kind of variable. So having pictures I have seen before where I hadn't seen it in a while, but it used to be like a little digital picture frame that you could set up on your table and you would put in the flash drive, and you would have your pictures just rotate through of your breeders, which might work because I know a lot of times I'll be wanting to take one of the adults, but it's during breeding season, or, you know, the female's getting ready to go on egg. Later on in the year, they're done. I can bring the male out, show him off, which I've done with the white-sided black rat. So it does help a little bit, just showing potential size, color, stuff like that.
Purple Church asks, do you breed jag? Is it worth it for the color boost?
That's going to be a touchy subject, kind of like the spider ball python issue, but I no longer work with jaguars. Made the decision years ago that the stuff that tends to have some of the neurological issues, I choose not to work with personally. I've got a lot of friends that still do. Just just like in spiders, you have some that really show no signs, but it's in here. It's tied to the gene. I was producing super caramel jags when they were, $1,200, and sold one to a friend of mine, and the sucker started kind of acting weird and spinning out, and I just wasn't comfortable doing it. And so I kind of made the decision to move them out. Sold the jaguars off, sold all the spider stuff off. Thought about keeping one as a nice big jaguar just as a pet, but it was like it would take up cage space and I would just be tempted to breed it. So I was like, I just need them all gone. But there's nothing wrong with them. It's just I personally choose not to work with them.
Well, speaking of like genes that are potentially deleterious, do you work with like zebras are fine, but like super zebras?
I hadn't produced any super zebras yet. They tend not to have a problem other than they call a pigtail. So their tail will really be curled up. And that's really the only inherent issue I've seen with the super zebras. I said, but I just haven't produced any yet. So I just rather like do some nice zebras and some regular jungles and be done.
Do you like granite as a gene? I saw you had some on your. I like granite. I like exanthic granite. I think I'm into like granite patterns in general.
Yes. I love the granite. Been working with it, and the main thing with that one is having to do a lot of outcrossing. So it was one of those kind of genes, kind of weak when it came in because it was too much inbreeding right from the start. So you kind of have to outcross, to preferably, since we're able to get in some wild poplin carpets, outcross with some new genetics and then kind of cross back in so that you could breed granite to granite. To produce the exanthic granite, you got to have to, outcross a little bit with the exanthic, with the granite. Exanthic's fine. It's just the granite. But trying to raise up a pair of double heads that are siblings and breed back, you're going to wind up having an issue with the granite. So it's best to kind of have some more extra animals in the rack. So, yeah.
Have you gotten wild caught?
No, I needed to get some more. I've just started kind of beefing back up on my poplin carpets and got kind of like already captive bred lines, picked some up, an old lineage from Spitfire, Yasser Mustafa, one of his, I think it's a Herman Cross Mocha pairing from years back. This is back when we were on Morelia Python's forum days. And so this animal's 16 years old at least. Incredible color on this male. And Yasser did a lot of work, giving him, working color and stuff in those. So going to start trying to pick up some more. A lot of it was needing to wait till I moved. Like I was telling you, my wife and I just recently bought a house going on 2 years ago this month. Actually just over 2 years ago, and was actually able to kind of expand the snake and reptile room out a little bit more. So it's going to allow me to pick up a couple more animals and kind of work those projects a little more heavily.
Yeah, good. I like poplins. They're my favorite. I feel like they're people's least favorite, but I like that you could still get wild stuff if you wanted to. We're not headed towards inbreeding depression necessarily, and I think the carpet of the future is the poplin carpet for me.
Well, and then if you get some really nice examples, they have some purples and some lavender colors pop up with a little bit of orange and the flecking, and they're one of the few carpets that actually kind of change color from day to night.
That's cool.
So
do you think they
like
breed
almost
more
having
like
another snake.
Do you think they breed more like a ball python as like a selling feature because they're more equatorial? Or are they like just as seasonal as a Australian carpet?
I would say they're just more seasonal. I don't see them doing, at least personally, I had an experience where I'm breeding them in November, December, and getting clutches. It's typically seasonal on most all your carpet pythons. Whereas ball pythons, retics, some of that stuff is kind of year round.
Yeah. I wonder like how many generations it takes too, because sometimes that's part of it also is you need X number of generations and they sort of decouple from whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use like seasonal cues and feeding cues for your carpets, or do you just use seasonal to get them to feel frisky?
I do both. I do the drop in temperature. I do the food a little bit more heavy on the food before I get ready to shut them down. And then, you kind of have that abstinence of food for a while and then adjust the light cycle. And
how long do you clean them out for?
Doing it.
Like how long do you don't feed them for in the winter?
Generally, it's about 2.5 months.
Okay.
Almost 3. I actually tried one year when I was kind of getting started back in like 2004 or something like that. I had already kind of kept them off food, and I kind of felt bad. So I started and found that when I did get a clutch of eggs, like half of them were slugs. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I didn't offer the food, offered a little heavier before I shut them down, that I would get full clutches of eggs. Their fertility was higher. So, you have to believe that it has a lot of play into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any like big differences in breeding styles that you've noticed? Or do they all respond relatively well to like that paradigm?
Those do. It just depends on in carpet pythons is which ones you're working with. So Brittle's pythons, inlands, and the Brisbane locality of coastals, you actually have to kind of cool down in diamonds. Mm-hmm. You have to really cool down in almost a hibernation type cycle. So you get them down until 55, 60 degrees, warm them up during the day to low 70s, and then drop them back down at night. And it's really helps them to get in the group because it simulates more where they're at in Australia. But
is that
most
why
of the
you
other
don't
stuff
have
you don't
them?
have to cool.
Is that why you don't keep them?
I do have inlands.
Okay.
Well, I do have inlands and I do have Brisbane locality. I just don't have Brittles. Diamonds, outside of being cooler in the winter, they just need a little bit cooler, period. And, I think once I kind of get my colubrid room set up to have kind of a designated colubrid room, then I'm going to have some diamonds and put in there and then be able to move my Brisbanes and all that stuff in there for the winter when everything kind of shuts down so that whole room stays cooler.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you could keep diamonds outside in Texas? Or do you think they would get like sun sickness?
No.
No? Too hot?
I think it would be way too hot. Way too hot.
What if it's like in the spring and fall, but not winter?
You might be able to let them get some sunlight if you had kind of like the old VPI cage setups, like they had the retics that would be able to go outside in sun, but still come in when it got cold, and set up like that. I think you could do. I've seen people in Europe, depending on where in Europe, just basically keep their diamonds outside year round.
Yeah, they do that in Florida.
Texas is too hot.
It's such a. It is really hot. I'm like the overnights here in the middle of the summer, 80. I'm like, that's pretty good. I would have to bring them back in during the day, but they could go like party in like an outdoor cage all night. Boas. I'm thinking about boas personally, but like you could. I feel like I don't know. it's just something that I'm tempted by with these like overnights that are so hot. It's perfect temperatures.
Yeah. But if I would kind of do it outside, I think they would benefit from the sunlight as well. So you would either have to have a shade or a little fan that kind of blew on them, and it'd be something you might want to try. And it'd be like, if they just looking not right, like I need to pull them.
Right.
I'd
or
be
like
worried they're too much to risk with those.
Yeah, I don't know. Or like Bredli are somewhere hot. Obviously, they would have like a microclimate in their rock crevice that is much cooler than the 100 degrees. But if you could make a microclimate rock structure that somehow you could still access, it could be like attached to a shed or whatever, and they can go retreat into the AC shed. I think they would be ecstatic to have like an outside sunny thing, and it would be kind of like where they live. I'm just saying we need more outside herpeticulture in this region. What do you think about that? I don't know what species would be best for it, but I think about it.
Tortoises.
Tortoises
are the easy ones.
Right. But then everybody like sells 1,500 sulcatas at the shows for 30 cents and gives them to kids.
But there's so many other species besides sulcatas.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, stop giving them away for 30 cents at a show.
Yeah. That's kind of the reason I chose not to breed as many carpets and snakes in general this year, just because where the market's at, that just didn't want to sit on a bunch of stuff. As we've seen being the shows, stuff is just not moving like it used to, unless you 50% off sales, and just like my stuff too much to go down. I may reduce the price a little bit, but it kind of hurts your other breeders when you're doing 50% off and 50% off, and have it listed at one price. And if somebody comes up to you and offers you a deal and it's cash, take less. Hey, cool. You're happy with it. They're happy with it. But just putting out, hey, everything I got over here is 50% off or 60% off, or something crazy. It's just, I think, kind of hurts the market in general, because a lot of it's like, well, I got a lot of clutches coming. Well, just don't breed. You don't necessarily have to breed everything. I mean,
right. I feel like that's especially important,
but you don't have to breed everything every year.
Yeah, I feel like it's especially important in carpets because they have larger clutch sizes, and they probably should be taking a year off anyway. But if you're like, damn, I'm still sitting on half of this clutch, maybe don't pair, because I'll still keep selling them this year or whatever. Yeah. Ball python people don't do that though. If you can't breed it anyway. I don't know. It's a different vibe.
It's different, and I guess I kind of straddle the fence, because I like ball pythons. I've been breeding them since 20 something years as well. And I would say the ball pythons has really got this market to where it is today, and got snakes so much more mainstream is ball python. So I think we do owe a lot to the ball python market, the morphs and different stuff coming in, but it's also a two-edged sword, because now everything wants to breed for morphs, and it's like, oh, we don't like the normal, a normal carpet python. I want to have a zebra instead of a regular jungle, or I have to have a jaguar or whatever because it's a morph, and it's kind of just blown stuff up. But just I like them, but I think what I like with your other keepers is most people, that's not just strictly ball python, and this is kind of general based. I know a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge that's in ball pythons, but kind of the in general market is they can't tell you the scientific name of a ball python, much less other snakes. So when we're talking carpet pythons, we talk about Reptilia something, and people, they know, but you say something ball python and they're like, it's a ball python. They don't know, scientific name or there's some species that don't really have much of a common name. And so by having a little bit more education in the snake keeping and knowing, you can carry on an intelligent conversation with somebody else talking about species that goes over other people's heads. I mean, a lot of times word shows and you see it, you don't really say Japanese. When you talk about Chlamydophora, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's hard though, because like I want to save ball python people from themselves. Like I'm like, come over here. You can still keep ball pythons, but if you keep something else, you'll have like inspired an interest in your heart in just reptiles or amphibians or the natural world in general. But a lot of times they're like, oh, I can't, if I don't invest this year in this. And I'm like, well, don't worry about that. How about you just get interested in something because you're just intellectually curious? It's not an investment. Do you ever like struggle with that where you're like, oh my God, how do we save them?
I don't know. I'm kind of one. I feel if you start having the success and the knowledge with breeding, ball pythons are pretty simple. Carpets are pretty good. And then you start breeding other species, then well, we got corn snakes. Well, let's get something that's a little more harder than corn snakes to breed. That has a little bit more, oriental rat snakes and that have different care requirements to get something that most people don't work with. So I had worked with calabar burrowing pythons years back. I would love to get back into them. They were older, wild caught, no telling how old they were. And, they, I guess, passed away. I would like to work more with those kind of species before everything just says, nope, we're not bringing anything more in. Borders are closed, no more exports. And you're going to have a lot of these snakes that are lost to herpetoculture because nobody took the time to mess with it. And granted, it's not going to be a money thing. They lay 3 eggs. I mean, you can't get rich off of 3 eggs once a year,
No, but yeah, I always want people to have like, I don't know, a common species, morph or not, but that people understand, like pet people that you're selling to at a show. And then like a high-end species that's like maybe difficult to keep and is well respected, and then like a rogue species that you're the only one preserving it or whatever, or you and your like 10 friends. And then like that's how like the whole hobby continues. But if everyone is a monoculture of ball pythons or a monoculture of crested geckos, it's pretty boring, A. And B, I'm not sure if those people really like anything. Really, they just want to stack more genes or whatever. It's so boring. That's my dream, but it's hard because a lot of people are like, I don't like anything else and I'll never like anything else. And I'm like, well, did you try? And they're like, I look at them, but I don't care. And then I'm like, okay, well, you shouldn't have an animal you don't care about. But I don't know. I don't have a good solution for like convincing
I think that's
people.
where a lot of them is if a lot of people go to shows. Yeah, okay, I'm a ball python breeder. I do all this. I've been looking at these other snakes at the show. Oh, let me try a corn snake. Get one. What's the worst case? After a year or two, you decide, it's not for me. Sell it and move on. But at least you've opened yourself up to a possibility of another species.
Right.
Like you were saying with the kind of the niche. So that's kind of where the dwarf berms that I work with. I remember seeing them ages ago. Well, not really that long, but it's been a while back. Bob Clark had some at a show, and this was back for anyone who's been in this hobby for a while. Before NERBC had the Arlington show, Bob Clark and Mike Wilbanks did it for 2 years there before they wound up selling that venue and stuff to NERBC. And so this was 2003 and 2004. And I seen some dwarf berms then. Kind of fell in love with them, but they were like 10 grand for either a pair or a piece. It was something ridiculous, and it was way out my thing. I was not really a Burmese guy. I mean, the biggest thing I own right now is an Australian olive python female. But started kind of fast forward. They started trying to do the Lacey Act. I don't remember. It was a bill, and it was all based off, the Burmese and all that stuff in Florida. So U.S. ARC has, since overturned it, but it got to where it was going to be a Lacey Act violation to ship or go across state lines with Burmese, retics, boas. If you've been in boas, when the market just kind of crashed at that time. They're like, oh, I can't ship them out of state. So what's the use? And it just kind of crashed. So, but right at that time, I got a pair of dwarf Burmese from Bob Clark. And I was like, well, I live in Texas. It's a big state. If I only can sell in Texas, there's a lot of potential customers. If I live in Rhode Island, I've got like 2 people. So, let me try it. And so, something that's like 8 foot full grown, nice, manageable, and hope that there's enough DNA, evidence at some point that they can kind of classify it as their own. Right now, they're subspecies of the Burmese python, but hopefully kind of class it as their own. And, just like being able to mess with something that I didn't really think other than, hey, I'm going to be able to keep these and be the one guy in Texas. It turns out I'm one of the very, very few in the entire country that actually has a breeder pair. I'm the only person in the country that
Isn't that crazy? You accidentally saved them, sort of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Accidentally.
I mean, like on purpose, but like that's how crazy it can be. That if someone's just like a continuous person in the hobby for a long period of time, if they were caring for something relatively rare, they can accidentally be the only source of that because all of the other ones, I don't know, were hybridized or went into space or died from whatever. You know what I mean? It could happen like that. Like if there's not somebody taking care of something, it's wild.
And so there was a lot of people that had one-offs. They either had an adult male, female passed away, or vice versa. So they would hit me, hey, if you ever want to sell your female, like, I only got the 1 pair. I can't.
Yeah.
So
did you hold back daughters this last year?
I held back a pair.
Okay.
I held back a pair so that, if something comes up, I have a friend, Python Palace, Chris lives in Leavenworth, Kansas, and he produces pure dwarf farms as well. His female became egg bound last year, and that's why he didn't produce any. So he'd already held some females back from the previous year. And so he's going to raise those up. His are a little bit different bloodline from mine. So we're going to look at swapping a little bit of bloodline down the road when he's able to, produce some more, and just still try to kind of keep it alive, even though we're kind of limited on what we have. But at least in my lifetime, I'll be able to say, hey, we kind of kept it pure, was able to still produce pure dwarf Burmese that were pure for somebody that's looking for just, that kind of animal.
Are they like tractable? Like relatively nice personality wise? I mean,
they're not bad. My female's really great temperament. The male, he's really a hisser.
Okay.
And it's kind of like when I had Borneo short tails. Male was fine, and then once he became sexually mature and I gave him a girlfriend, he became a butt. And then wanted to strike out and lash out. And, generally I can kind of use the hook more on the male and then just kind of get his demeanor. Most time I kind of reach him, pull him out, do what I need to do. But when you're kind of going through and you're just kind of cleaning cages and you work a regular 40-hour work week and then you're in there trying to clean cage and I don't have time to get bit and worry about blood dripping all over. And, you still run that possibility, but if I can minimize, then that's what I'm going to try to do, when I'm in that process. And if I go out and kind of the hole, that's a different ball game. But when you kind of got a process, I need to clean cages. I need to go through. I don't have time to get bit and clean poop and get it infected. It's like, I just need to clean.
So. That's cool. I think I saw them in person a couple times. I thought they were very beautiful. was very tempted, but also I'm very poor. So maybe in the future. I always liked berms better than retics, just always. Because, like, I don't know. Like in the late 90s, everyone was like, retics are psycho, berms are cool. That was like the, I don't know, mindset or whatever. Because they were just generally more tractable. So, but to me, berms are still too big for me.
Yeah.
A dwarf berm, yeah.
I mean, they're really. I've got a few carpets that are actually bigger than the dwarf berms as far as length.
How much does your female weigh? Do you know?
I want to say probably, man, like 36 to 40 pounds.
So a lot, but not like.
It's not very much because I've got a. Yeah, she's thick, but I feed her jumbo rat probably every 3 weeks or so. And currently she's like, I kind of was frustrated because she did the whole going into shed thing. Man, in 30 days, I'm going to have some eggs. Well, guess what? She went into another shed cycle. So I'm waiting on her to drop eggs now. I've had a few other snakes do that in the past. But when you're really looking forward to having a clutch and then all of a sudden they decide, oh, I'm going to do another shed cycle. And so you didn't feed them for that 30 days because, they don't eat.
Right.
And just to find out that you're not going to, it wasn't a pre-lay shed, you just going into another one. So
how many eggs did she lay?
Weeks, I should have eggs from her.
Oh, so another set. Do you know how many eggs she normally has? Like, what's the clutch size?
10 to 13. I think the first year I had 13. Second year I had 10. I talked with Jeff Byers, who used to work for Bob Clark back in the day when he had several dwarf berms. And the biggest clutch ever was 16 eggs.
Okay, I kind of like that.
So it's kind of the record. And because anybody that knows Bob, like, you feed the piss out of everything because the most eggs I can get out is what I'm trying to get. So if he only got 16 eggs, that's as much as you're going to have. People getting more, I think, you wind up getting a 50% or 75% dwarf berm and think you might have got a pure. And so that's why you get bigger clutch sizes. But the most he ever had was 16.
Is that a problem of like people whitewashing crosses as pure?
I think it can be. A lot of times you can look at the pattern. The dwarf berms have a really distinct pattern. It's really broke up. You look at a normal Burmese, they're really blotchy and kind of square block. Kind of remind me of.
They look like literal puzzle pieces to me.
Yeah, they do. Like it was a regular Burmese. It kind of has like the saddles like a black rat, kind of, because they're more blotchy and kind of, they're not really saddles, but you know what I'm talking about, broke down. Yeah. Whereas the dwarf berms, they're like you said, puzzle pieces. It looks like it's shattered pattern. It kind of reminds me of the granite poplar carpet. How you have a pattern and then it's just blown out.
Yeah, it's or like a leopard boa.
Yeah, I could see
like
that.
It still has like the remnants of saddles, but they've been like exploded and granity. I don't know. Very cool that it comes.
And their eyes typically are a little more towards the top of their head and not as much on the side.
Do you think they're more, I don't know, in the wild, more water using? Is it like an adaptation to that, or is it just like a byproduct?
I don't know. Being from really small islands is possibility.
Do yours like water or a full? Will they go? Because this is sort of. I mean, you're right. It sort of looks more like an anaconda head than a.
I've given them a big enough bowl, but I haven't really noticed them like hanging out in a bowl. Like they'll drink, run through, and then that's it.
Okay, maybe not. Do you know where they're from? What the subspecies range is?
I had it written down somewhere. I want to say it's like, and I may be wrong, but I think it was like Bali, Jakarta, and something else. But you got so many little islands over there that don't even have like common names. That's why like retics, there were so many at one time it's just super dwarf. And now you're getting, I guess they're starting to get names. You've got Karumpa, you've got, Coyote and I don't know all the names, but there's several different, localities of retics now from different islands and distinct. So being that not many of these come in, or I haven't seen any come in, don't really know.
Do you know if anybody's ever told you what lineage yours are? Or like
mine would be
import location?
Bob Clark, because he got in wild and he bred. So these were captive bred through Bob Clark. Now, there were also some wild animals that came into East Bay Vivarium.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Chris that I was telling you about, he's got some animals from that stock. And I believe also Bob. I think it's kind of a one-on-one. There might have been a couple other people here and there that had some, but most of that is kind of, they've either died off or got sick. And so then you just wind up with a one-off animal. And so they either wind up selling it or said, I'm going to go ahead and make 50%ers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, granted, now with the pied Burmese, I mean, who wouldn't want a small pied Burmese? I mean, it's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not what I want to do.
The internet says Java, Bali, Sumbawa, and Sulawesi.
Okay, that's it. Yeah. So
they are like an insular form, also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you ever? I mean, Glenn's here. He's a retic boy. So we'll ask about it. Were you ever tempted by retics? Did you ever keep retics?
I had a super dwarf retic back in like 2005, 2006.
Before it was cool.
Yeah, pretty much. It was, I ran with a group of guys that, Jim Mason, his brother, Sean Barnett from Barnett Reptiles, they were doing retics. Jim Mason was doing Burmese, and got a hold of a super dwarf retic and wound up keeping it for probably about a year before I sent it out on breeding loan, and then it died on breeding loan.
Lame.
Upset me, but it was nice. This male was like 7 foot. He was smaller, right? Well, about the same size as my male carpets.
Very
so
cool.
I have been tempted to get back into it, and actually had somebody offer to do a trade of some dwarfs for the dwarf berms, and I just looked at a lot of the shows that we do, because you do a lot of shows with me, that there's a lot of retic breeders already there. And I just didn't really want to kind of jump on that market, and their pure localities are higher priced. So talking with a lot of them, I would probably do more sales online, but I would still want to try to get in, the normal, not the everyday I want to buy a $30 ball python person, but get some more, retics into there. So
Bebo's berms.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we need more at our shows locality retic breeders. There's a lot of like mix, which is fine, whatever. But I don't think we have that many, or at least I don't see them. Maybe they've already bought them all up. It's hard to like you brought the dwarf berms to the shows, and I'm like, is somebody gonna buy that here? Did someone ever buy them at shows, or did they all buy them online eventually anyway? You're just sort of showing off.
Most of them were done online. I took like that last pair, I took to the show just in hopes it would probably be more of another breeder that would say, hey, I'd really like to get into those, not just the average customer coming up to the show.
Right.
Actually did one, I think 2 years ago, when I went to Lone Star's Amarillo show, and actually had already sold this pair of dwarf berms. The guy was supposed to drive up to that show, and then the funds didn't really hit the bank. the money and he paid it, but Square had never seen that amount of money in my account before. And so they froze it, and I had to answer all these questions, and I was hoping it would clear up. And so I had to call him and said, look, don't waste the time driving up here because I know you paid, but the money hadn't cleared. And he understood. I mean, he was very understanding. And I think it finally cleared on Monday. And there was another guy that he was friends with that was at the show that's like, man, I'll drive him, delivering to him because I live right, not too far from him. And I was like, it just hadn't cleared yet. That was a lot of money for me to just say, and not get. So
yeah,
I had to kind of hold off on that. But then there was another guy that was a vendor at the show. Was like, man, I will buy him, and I'm like, well, this pair is already sold. And so figuring if I took some, there would probably be another vendor that would, be open to buying them and want to start another project. So more the main reason taking show. And then just let other people know that there is such thing as a dwarf Burmese, and, you can have other things. You might like it. Yeah, the price is up there now because, like I said, right now I'm the only person in the country producing, or at least last year. So in the next few years, there should be a couple more. Some of the customers that have bought from me, their animals should be getting up to size, and then there'll be a little bit more competition and at least more available. And with more available, there's more supply. So the demand will still be there, but that means prices will come down. It just may take a little bit.
Yeah, they're very cool. They deserve a good price, right? That's not even my quibble. It's just like, if you don't have the money, you don't have the money, right? Yeah. No, that's cool. It's the Amarillo show. I'm just going to be nosy. Good. I'm just curious. I'll probably do it this September just for fun. See what happens. Because it's actually pretty close to me. Is it like a busy show, or is it?
Which one? Amarillo?
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's they've had it. It actually used to be a herp show.
Oh.
And actually before Sean and Lori got as a herp show, it was
a Repticon?
No, Charlie Paskett. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. Him and Sean kind of started doing the herp shows. And Charlie wound up starting to do that one in Amarillo, and they kind of sold it to Herps. And then Herps said, well, that's long distance. They're doing more towards Louisiana, and this, takes us to ways. And they were, Otis and Malia were looking at kind of venturing past just Arlington. So they wound up kind of selling that show venue and whatever to Otis and Malia. So for you, it's probably not bad.
Yeah, it's like 2 hours for me.
It's how long?
It's like 2 hours.
Oh, wow, that's even better. Because I think Norm's like 4. It's like 7 for me.
Oh man.
Yeah, once you get past Fort Worth, it's just 2-lane road for 3.5 hours, 4 hours just driving.
Yeah, I did Odessa, so I kind of like West Texas driving. It's very chill. It's slow, or I mean, it's not even that slow. It's like 70 or whatever. But if you, I don't know. It's nice. I don't feel in danger at any point.
No. That's
maybe in danger of boredom, right? Have you ever done? Did you ever do the Wichita Falls show that existed for like a second, a couple years ago?
Herp show?
Yeah.
No. I don't know. Did they do it? Which they may have. I know that they've just done some like Waco. They switched out of Waco now and just opened that one to Belton. I just got the email. I got to hit Lori back.
Where's Belton?
Belton's further south on 35. So you got Waco, Temple, and then I think it's Belton before you get to like Georgetown, Round Rock.
Oh,
it's kind of on that stretch of 35.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people down there. I like that people have money, but like I'm so far west in Oklahoma, like
yeah.
I'm almost and like, should I vend in Albuquerque? Like, technically, that's a possibility too.
Yeah, that's a good distance. I mean, I think Norm and I, Norm Barrett from Royal Flush, we did 3 shows. Was it 3 shows? Maybe just 2. Or we did when Repticon did a Denver show, which was actually outside of Denver, Aurora. And first time we just kind of traveled. I went to his house, loaded stuff in his car in Shawnee, then drove to Robert, his house. He puts on the Central Kansas Reptile Expo. Got in his car and drove through the night and got there at like 6:45 in the morning to set up by 7 when they open the doors and do the show all day with no sleep. The next year I drove and got Norm and drove up, and it was 997 miles when I hit the hotel parking lot that evening in one day. I was beat, tired of sitting. But it wasn't a bad show. It wasn't worth the drive for me to continue. And then finding out like they just had a local show, which they do like every other month, was like a week before that one.
Oh, no.
So when you start getting a lot of these shows that tie up in the same area, people are not saving their money for shows. They're just spending a little bit here and a little bit there. And then, you know, when you're driving that kind of distance, you really need to kind of compensate a little bit. Yes. You know, because I just look at the show. Okay, well, I did well. You know, I paid my table and hotel, but I just drove, you know, basically 20-something hours for free. I'm not getting paid any driving time. So, you know, you got to start to account for some of that. So it's kind of cut me down on really long distance shows like that.
I just did Denver a couple weeks ago, and it was my best show ever.
Really?
So I would drive again. Because like some shows close down up there.
Yeah.
And so there's no Reptile Nation anymore. So they started a new show, which is like the All-American Reptile and Plant Expo. So it was marketed as a plant show.
Yeah.
That brought in a different crowd. And they're like, wow, what's a corn stick? And I'm like, let you know. I will. Okay. So like, I don't know if you were interested. I think they opened, it would be further away for you, but it was 8 hours for me.
Yeah.
But I thought it was hype. I would do that one again in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Well, easy. See, we did the him and I also did the Herps Pueblo, Colorado show. And
how'd that go?
That was an incredible show. It was great. I did great, and then they did away with it.
Why'd they do away with it? Just too far away?
There were some problems with the venue. From what I understood, there was some problems with the venue. Where it was at, there was, you know, somebody's truck got broke into. One of the vendors had his own camper, and so it was hooked up to his truck. And while he was sleeping outside the venue that evening, somebody tried to steal a running generator out the back of his truck.
Oh my gosh.
And they saw the short end of a gun and they left. But
oh yeah,
I mean, it was kind of crazy. And I'm like, well, luckily none of that happened to us. But then there became a problem with the venue. And so, you know, Herps had to kind of pull out of that. And it was a little bit shorter drive, but it was like a show like that was worth it for me to go.
Yeah, they have all that like weed money up there. It just feels like they don't mind spending whatever on whatever. Some of them want a pet. They never even saw that before. It all feels really new and fresh to them. So I was like, this place is awesome. And they're all like pretty happy. I guess they were high. I don't know. That's fine with me. I don't care.
Yeah.
They were like happy people, and they had like nice food trucks. So they got a taco, and there was plants. So everybody was happy. It was like a great vibe show too. Because sometimes I think, like, to me, the OKC market is saturated. I don't even know if it's saturated with shows. Maybe just snakes. Like, they act like they don't want anything. Some of them want something, but they need it to be like super cheap or like what is wrong with you people? Wait, what's your vibe?
Oklahoma is there's very little discretionary income.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to say it's a poor state, but they don't have that extra money, you know, I need, especially with everything costing so much now, you know, I need gas in my car just to get to work. I've got kids and stuff, and I need to feed. I've got groceries and everything's cost more. What do I need a pet snake for? much less a $300 pet snake. Like, unless I'm a breeder and I'm aspiring to breed this feed. And I just, I've been doing shows off and on up there for 10, 12 years. And so my take is maybe no more than about 4 or 5 shows a year and kind of space them out. I think that's why the one they just had in Tulsa this last weekend is a 1-day show, which may be beneficial there. For me, it's not worth driving 1 day for a show and then coming back. So, but that one doesn't work for me. But then it may, where you don't have an oversaturation. Texas
right now
it's starting to get too many shows with, 6, 7, 8 different outfits, doing shows.
Yeah.
We just got another one. I just did the Lone Star show in North Richland Hills, which you and I were both at. And you've got another outfit out of Louisiana coming in and trying to take that same venue.
What?
The same venue. You might be able to do the same city, but the exact same venue. And well, the only difference is we got birds. Like, you don't try to steal somebody they've already tried to develop that market.
Right.
And you're going to come in and try to steal that market,
I did see that they apologized on their website. But I was like, I don't know. I don't know if they should lose their refund because obviously, or lose their deposit on the thing. Supposedly they were lied to that there was no other animal event in that facility. And they're like, we didn't know. But like, do you believe them? I don't know. It's hard to, I don't know any of these.
There's enough stuff on the internet. Like
that they should have Googled it.
Morph Market, you can go to Morph Market and there's a list of events and you can see their shows. So I'd even heard of this outfit from, other vendors that we've vended with doing it in Louisiana. Heard of them. They started doing this. It's like, you obviously can find, but even, they said they'd reached out to, the owners of Lone Star. And, Malia said, nobody ever reached out to me. We never received a phone call. We never heard nothing from them. So, you got so much backstabbing, and I'm probably going to, regret it later, but there's been so much backstabbing here that somebody can put on a show and somebody will put up billboards or different signs and come in the week before another established show to steal it.
Sorry, my phone's ringing. Keep talking.
Yeah. But I see that been happening, a lot. I'm not going to mention any names, but anybody's watch, you'll see it. Just kind of come and steal a show the weekend before, 2 weeks right before a show that's already been there for a while.
Yeah.
And most people that don't pay attention, reptile show. Well, you go and you're expecting the people that you're used to seeing, and you don't because they've already, scheduled for this other show in 2 weeks, and it may be at another venue or, one of their weekends off between shows. So, I don't know. It's a whole other soapbox issue.
Yeah. I mean, you think, there's millions of people in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. So technically, if they were well promoted, there could be a show a month technically. But like, I don't think anybody really wants to do a show a month, really, to me, in my opinion. But what do I know? But do you think they should have less shows in Texas in general, or in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or because I think Shawnee should go away. I'm gonna be honest. It's close for me, but it's one. Every time I go there, everyone's like, "It was okay," or "It was bad." I've never heard, "Wow, this market is hot."
It's like I told you. I think I'm just going to do that one and bring no ball pythons, and just bring everything else. Because there was a whole lot of 50% off to going out of business, and kind of heard rumors that there was one vendor that said was going out of business, and they do that. From what I heard, they do that every year. I didn't really pay attention to every other vendor in there, but they do that. They just keep this one show and they say going out of business and try to sell all their stock off, and then just wait till next year or the next, since twice a year. And I'm like, I don't know how true that is, but
I thought they legitimately were going out of business. They just couldn't sell everything each time.
Well, the last show I did, there was 2 different vendors that were going out of business. One of the spouse had a health issue, and so they need to take care of their spouse, and so they need to kind of downsize to get out type thing. And the other one, I didn't hear of a reason other than just going out of business.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So like every time I've done that show, I guess we do it at the same time. There have been multiple people going out of business and like selling adult ball pythons at baby prices, basically. So it makes it difficult to sell babies. And then you're like, why am I here? My life is meaningless. Every time.
At least.
Yeah,
at
but
least
they don't know what those are.
Boas.
They think they're retics or whatever. And I'm like, no, it's not a retic.
They're not bad. They're baby boas.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, I've complained about this a lot. I think if they want to keep that show so that people can get supplies and feeders, they should probably just cut the number of vendors down. Just be like, okay, we're going to set up a kid bouncy house over here free. But we're going to just shave off 20 tables worth of vendors or something. And it could be like by seniority. I don't even care. Because there isn't enough money in the room to go around for that many tables.
No.
Anymore. Maybe during pandemic time. And so like that's why when I was talking to you, I was like, I'm gonna cut that show out because it's always been like a break-even show for me. Always. Even with boas and whatever, colubrids, other stuff. What is going on? I don't know.
Well, I do. That one I had thought about cutting out as well, but Norm from Royal Flush, like he's 5 minutes from the venue. So
it makes it
personally, I have no hotel fee.
Okay.
I hang out with him. I just have a table fee in my drive.
That makes it easier.
It's kind of like Longview for me. Paul will come up from Houston. He crashes at my house. It's 40 minutes to Longview, and just come back and hang out at my house, and we just go back to Longview the next day. And if Norm decides he wants to venture down, it's the same way. We just drive 40 minutes to the show and back. It's not doesn't beat his 5 minutes, but it's still kind of a local show. And I kind of talked about that with the Oklahoma as well. But there is shows I have cut out because I'll new market. Let me try it. Different thing. There for a long time there was really no carpet breeders doing shows in Louisiana, and so it kind of opened up that avenue for me. You have more that are doing carpets now, and for me it's not really worth driving, even though now I'm going to do sulfur. Lake Charles I didn't like because they had that tax rate and it's like 11.2%.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, this is either going to be straight cash shows or they're just not buying anything. Because 11.2, every time you got to run your square, and then they got the sheets. They want their money in Lake Charles. So it was like, yeah, that's a little stiff right there at 11.2. So I'm hoping sulfur's not that way, but it was like, if I'm going to drive that distance, and I can do it, I think it was like 4 hours. So I get up early Saturday morning and drive to a hotel one night, come back Sunday. But I just don't know if I want to do it and kind of break even. But I kind of keep a log of everything. And it's like, okay, sit down and, this show just wasn't very profitable for me for 2, 3, 4 shows. I'm just going to cut that one. It doesn't matter how many people that are there that I'm friends with, it just doesn't work for me because I really don't want to do more than two shows a month, kind of the max. There's a couple that I do 3. January kind of wound up hitting me because there was Longview, Conroe, and Shawnee. And I've done a couple, and when you start doing back-to-back shows, 3 back-to-backs gets rough. And we're humans, we're adaptable, but for the snakes, when you're trying to kind of watch what you feed going into a show so you don't have a lot of cages to clean and in the next week you're doing the same thing. So it's not as good on the animals, so I don't really like to try to do back-to-backs.
Yeah, I like to actually rotate animals if I can. So like bring 30 corns to one show. And then if it shows 2 weeks later, just bring a different 30. I got 800. That's fine. Who cares?
Yeah. When you can do that, yeah.
So did you ever have problems with like the rules for bigger than 8 feet in Louisiana permit? Like, isn't there a permit for so like carpets technically fall into that, certain carpets and berms? Like, did they have to have possession of the permit before you could sell it to them?
So what I was told was I could bring my baby carpets and it was no problem selling them. It was up to the local resident to buy their permit. They had 30 days from the moment they buy it, the snake, to get their permit. But I have no control over that. So if they choose not to, it's on them. I don't have to keep record of who I sell to. But like we talked about at the beginning, if I wanted to bring an adult to show you what the colors look like, I'm going to have that permit to come in because it's going to be over 8 feet.
Right.
Even if it's 7 feet, I'm going to go ahead and get the permit because I don't want some, hey, that's 8 feet. And then we have to harass the snake and try to stretch it out to measure that, hey, it's only 7 feet. Because generally they're generalizations. Hey, that snake's about 7. It could be 7.5. But I think one, I would just have to get the permit. And they told me that was the only time I would need the permit is if I were bringing one in that was larger than our 8 feet rule.
Now, what about in Texas, like hogs or glossies or any of that? Technically, they have to have a permit, but can they just go to Walmart afterwards and get it? But or do you have to write down their permit number to your logbook or whatever?
No. I mean, as long as hognose have been sold in Texas, I don't think anybody has ever done that. They don't really enforce the hogs, but they do enforce the Burmese. Like, I actually got a piece of paper from Texas Park and Wildlife for documenting the Burmese. But
DNR's never run around and been like, where's your hognose permit for this clearly captive bred lavender conda? Whatever.
And that's kind of the thing is you going and doing shows is watch your local laws or state laws. So going to Colorado, can't take hognose.
Right.
But
they were 100% walking around in West Denver. They were
coming to Oklahoma. If I've got an albino, I'm good. But if I had a normal head albino, I couldn't sell it. Because just because I say it's normal head albino, they can't prove that it's head. It looks normal. I can't sell it. I'm out of state. But if I had albinos and toffees and all that other stuff, I was good. I just couldn't have the normal heads.
Now, is that from DNR? Because that's not what their website says. But that it could be like, an extra rule where they're all like winking at you or whatever.
Yeah, and it could be something to do with the city of Shawnee. That one.
Okay. Because there's technically a possession permit that's easy to get, but you're supposed to have the permit before you get hognose. And there's a propagation permit. And all of those are supposed to be done beforehand. And I'm like, nobody's going to do that at a show for possession of a $150
they don't know if they're going to buy it or not.
Right.
That's like.
Then in Texas, people have hognose all coming out their pockets, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure y'all need to go to Walmart to get a permit, but none of you act like it. And then, like, technically, the seller is supposed to have like a record of sales, and then what permit holders receive the items. And I'm like, does anybody submit that? You're saying mostly no.
I've never seen it with hognose. Like I said, when I did with the dwarf berms with the Burmese, I'm supposed to.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know when it comes to that. It just gets tricky with regulations, but it is best to keep an eye on
rules. Everybody.
Pop. So that's
like I have Slowinski. They are native to Texas, and they're not that cool. So like asking someone to go get a permit to get one when it looks like a corn snake, basically. I don't. If I were to take them to Texas to sell them, I don't know if they're going to get a permit.
Well, it's kind of like when I would go to in the Shreveport Bossier area was always worse. You would have to get a permit to be able to sell, my white-sided black rats.
Mm-hmm.
because Texas rat snakes are native into Louisiana. But I'm like, this is a black rat. So all the nomenclature has been thrown out the window. Everything's changed now. This was the old obsoleta, but now they're all classified with the Texas rat as Western rats. So you would have to have a permit, and that permit was like $70, and it was good for 3 days.
Wow.
Only long enough. So if you do 3 shows a year, you've got to have that permit. I need to make sure I'm going to make a sale to justify me buying this permit. And it's one of the reasons, like, you know, they opened up the Reptilia Nation San Antonio show again. And the first time he covered like the big permit for everybody. And then you just had to have a $50 pet store permit. So if you're going to sell a snake, and it's the reason I went ahead and bought it, in order for a customer to hold a snake, you had to have the permit.
Wow.
So when my buddy had axolotls, he didn't have to because you're not holding the axolotl. But a lot of times to clinch that sale, hold the snake. So let me buy that $50 permit. Well, in order to do that show again now, you have to have the $50 permit, but you also have to have a $250 permit. Because
so everybody that just vended it, like Shores and us, all of them paid for that?
Yeah, you would have to.
Okay.
To do that show.
Maybe.
Now, the ones outside of San Antonio, you don't have to have that. You know, Texas Reptile Expo, I think that's the McQueenie show. There is Lone Star and Schwartz. It's on the fringes on the outside of San Antonio, so you don't have to have that same permits. But those inside, you have to. Same thing with the Houston Reliance Center. It's inside the city of Houston. So bringing big carpets or having carpets, I'm not going to risk. That's a $500 per animal permit. I mean, fine if they decide to come through and say, oh, yeah, that's when it gets over 8 feet. And it's $500 per.
Did you apply for the display?
Not that I know if they've done it, but I don't want to be the first.
Did you apply for the display permit for Dallas for carpets or berms?
I did only for the Burmese because that's such a big show. Like I said, that was, I figured another breeder might be willing to buy those. But I brought those and was going to bring some carpets for display. I was going to bring a jungle, brought a Brettles, and Paul brought the Brettles, and I was going to do a jungle and a Darwin head albino. And I got everything packed up and forgot my 2 carpets. So all we had was his Brettles and the dwarf farms. I didn't want to do and bring a bunch of baby carpets because you could sell them, but you had to go outside Dallas County city limits to sell the animal, exchange the money, and it wasn't worth it to me to probably drive 15, 20 different places to do all these transactions and still try to drive home, get my animals taken care of, put up, and then go to work the next morning.
Yeah.
I had enough other things I could sell, you know.
Right. Do you I know they're working on city council to like maybe give them like a 3-day, you know, whatever, at least pass or whatever, so they could do it. But if that doesn't happen, do you think Dallas should be moved again somewhere else? Or because it feels like it hurts everyone for that to be true, because then everybody has to bring just ball pythons and boas, and that's it, right? There is some other stuff that's brought and displayed, but like it becomes very samey. Like,
yeah,
what do you think they should do?
That one kind of threw me off because actually when the control officer came up, she was very nice, and I asked her. I said, could you explain to me why I can't have a rosy boa, but I can have a red tail boa? And she said, if I could take a shot every time somebody's already asked me that question this morning, I'd be classified. But, you know, and so they were frustrated, I can tell, you know, with that. But she still took time to talk to me. We talked, discussed, hey, reach out to me, shoot me some emails. You know, she took pictures of the different stuff. They talked to a lot of people because they really have no problem with the other animals. It's just the city council. So they were trying to get as much They were like, I wish you brought a Kenyan sand boa. I wish you brought a rosy boa so I could take pictures and be able to use this as evidence when we go before, the city council to go ahead and try to. Then I can take a little Kenyan sand boa or a red tail boa. A Kenyan sand boa. Right. It was ridiculous. But to answer your question, if they can't get it changed, I would think they need to move the venue, preferably to a smaller venue. That was larger, which is great, but you had so many, and what it hurts is your new breeders trying to come in, because a lot of us have been doing it. It's hard to get into a show. You see, there's waiting lists for these shows, right? So by opening up to have more vendors, that allowed some of them their foot in the door. But it also was so big, and I heard they're actually going to move that from that building to another, I guess inside there, but another area that offers more square footage.
So like the part where Snake Discovery was, they're going to be in the center instead of.
And it opens up more vendors. But guess what? I guess the easiest way to explain it is if, we'll just say round numbers, $100,000. That's all anybody coming into the show is going to be able to spend as a conglomerate group, $100,000. Well, if you have 100 vendors splitting that $100,000 versus 50 vendors, there's more. We're all in there to make money. I mean, honestly, sell the animals, make a little bit of money. If it was all about just drinking beer and hanging out with your buddies, I can do that like I'm doing with you right now.
That's right.
And we can, face chat or whatever, and do the same thing and save a whole lot of money. Here, look, here's my snake, and do the same thing versus going to a show and spend all that money there. I mean, I've got friends that said, hey, I was all the way in the back. It was so big, people didn't venture that far. They got tired before they got to the back.
Right. They needed a respite in the middle of. They needed like a I don't know, a chase lounge or something for people to faint halfway to the back. It is wild. I was very close to the back too. I did okay. I think mostly because I just brought corn snakes only, and that was a very like pet snake discovery type audience.
So and that's probably why you did well.
Yeah, but like the ball python people near me, I don't even think they sold anything.
Yeah,
unless it was for pickup. Much. Yeah,
and once again, there was 50% off sales at that show.
Yes, there were.
And that's kind of heartbreaking when all I can really bring is balls. Like I could have probably done better if I'd been able to bring my baby spotteds, children's Mantaresia, a couple of carpets. I had some Kenyan sand boas. I forgot to even mention I had sand boas and rough scales, and then the Arabians as well. So got a lot of different little projects.
Are you getting out of house snakes?
Yeah, too? Got house snakes. I'm kind of moving those out though.
Did you not like keeping them? Or are they too little? They all escape from the.
I like them. I don't really have any problem with escape. They do eat a lot, and it's just I just don't know where the market's at on those. Like ultimately, there's going to be some stuff that you keep that is more like, hey, I'm trying to make some money off of these. If there's a market, got into them. I thought they were fun. Market looked like it was opening up. Hey, it gives me a chance to either invest in some more in some combination genes or whatever, and it's just not moving like that. And so
like it shows.
Yeah, it shows online. I mean, I might have sold one or two, via Morph Market, but in general, it just doesn't seem to be moving. At least for me. Right. You got other people that do a lot, like focus on house snakes, and so you kind of become the go-to person, for house snakes. It's like I can remember years ago there was a guy that was doing all your Candolia species. So island ground boas, Pacific Island tree boas, all that
Jeff
stuff.
Conway?
Jeff Conway, yep. He was the man, and he had, this is the price for pinky eaters, this is the price for anole eaters or lizard eaters.
I used to
And
look
like,
at his
if you
website when I
wanted
was like 12.
any information, that's who you went to, because he
Yeah.
was, you
Is
focused
his
on.
website still up? I'm so curious now.
You know what? I don't know. I hadn't seen him post or do anything in ages.
Is he alive?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I thought Tim Spuckler would be dead for sure. He's still alive.
He's still around. I've actually got some stuff from Tim way back, Russian rat snakes back.
I know,
ages
isn't that
back.
crazy? His website's been the same for 30 years. Yeah. This looks awesome still, but I'm in. Wait, I can't find it. Yeah, I think I agree. I think if they can't get permission to sell other stuff, it's just hurting everybody to keep it there. I do like that facility though. It's fine. It is big, but at least it has just like
big.
Yeah. It's got like the bathroom in the center, so you don't have to like run away and get lost.
But yeah, I was talking to this guy, and I'm like, if you want to look for some obscure snakes, obscure colubrids, I said, go to Fauna Classifieds. You're not going to find it as much on Morph Market or King Snake. And I said, I'll tell you why. It's a lot of old school breeders that not really into morphs. They're not into paying for anything. You can post on Fauna for free. And they just breed this other stuff because that's just what they like to do. They're not going to pay money to post it on Morph Market because, you know, say Gulf hammock snakes or something like that, right? They're just this is what you'd find in a wild type snake. Well, there's not really a big market because everything seems to be morph driven. So I'm not paying money to advertise it. I'm going to be on the Fauna. So if you want something that's really weird, sunbeam snakes, you know, Mexican burrowing python, stuff like that, your best bet's to find it over there.
Right. And it's probably not, I don't know, inbred all to hell. And it's just been like a lot. It might have been line bred, but you know what I mean? Like not morphed out so bad. It's like, I don't know, stupid. Mm-hmm. Like there's a guy in there he's just like, I found these fox snakes on the side of the road 20 years ago. And every year I breed them. I'm like, I love this guy. They're just like his pet fox snakes that he keeps and he sells the babies off of. Yeah, he's not posting the morph market either. Ever. Bless his heart.
Yeah, I forget. I think the first time I actually saw some was probably 2 years ago, maybe 3, at a show in Derby, Kansas, the Central Kansas Reptile Expo. John Grant had some fox snakes, and I was like, I kind of liked them.
Yeah.
If I'd done better at the show, I probably would have bought them.
Isn't that like the worst feeling? Because you're like, I like those. It's like $600 a pair or $400 a pair or whatever it is. But you're like, you need to go to the show because otherwise it's truly like an impulse, like fun purchase. And it doesn't happen. And it's like the fish that got away feeling like for the rest of your life.
Yeah, especially when you don't see them that often. Right. You know, I want to trade for this ball python morph. You're going to generally find it again somewhere with another gene in it. So, but yeah, you know, if somebody wants to trade, that's even better. You're not out any money, but when it's just like, hey, I don't do ball pythons, I got fox snakes. Yeah, I need the money. So you're hoping to make the sales so that you can, you know, get that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's a guy, I don't know if you know him, Prairie Land Herps, Larry Keller.
Larry Keller.
Yeah, he took down, he might have wholesaled them or something, like all of his hypo calico Chinese beauties. And I've been like, Larry Keller, don't sell them. Because I need to like make some money and like pay for stuff to get him to ship it to me because we don't vend shows. I don't vend shows that far north. I think they're all gone. And I'm like,
now I'm like depressed. Market, though.
There's other ones from other people, but not from him. I bought my Diones. My Vladivostok Diones from him a couple of years ago. I don't know. I keep getting like hosed by like trying new sellers. I'm like, I'm just gonna buy from people I already bought from for a while. So I don't know. Bad things don't happen to me as much. Then they're like reliable. So I was like, I'm gonna get some from Larry. But now he took them all down. He must have sold them all or something. But
he probably did. They started to pick up because I actually have a female calico beauty snake from Larry Keller.
Good. Great. Maybe I'll buy one from you one day. To me, like they're better
I need a
palmettos.
I need a male.
Better. Okay.
I've been waiting on and I want to buy from him. And when he has them, I don't have any money. And then when I have some money, I don't see him.
Larry. No, he's cool. I should have him on too. He's an old timer.
Yep.
I don't think Jeff Conway's website is still up, but a cached copy of it exists on kingstake.com. If anybody wants a nostalgia journey.
Old school priceless.
Yeah, oh, it's so I don't know. It's tickling my memory hard. Have you ever worked with Candoya?
Yes and no. When I was getting into snakes, reptile shows were popping up. So this was, mid to late 90s. And I picked up a pair of Solomon Island ground boas, just regular brown, nothing spectacular. I can pay like $40 a piece. And, got them home. And it's like, yeah, it's a snake. You got to keep it warm. And almost cooked him. I finally was able to do a little research. Oh, yeah, well, need to get a knoll. So I found a green knoll, fed it to one. He ate, but then up under the heat lamp, he regurged.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, they weren't doing well. And there really wasn't a lot of that information available. Like, guy had them, and you can see them at shows now every once in a while. Somebody will get these wild cops in that drops a bunch of babies. And so, you see these babies for $10 to $20 a piece. Mm-hmm. Sometimes. I've been to a few shows like that. And it's like, well, you gotta have the time to work with them. And, now there's people has got some that kind of started on pinkies from the jump. Mm-hmm. And so that's what becomes their future breeders, so that in hopes they kind of pass that appetite for rodents on to their offspring without being lizard and whatever else eaters.
Mm-hmm. I think Kristen, Sticky and Xotics, I think she said, on our interview, like half of her babies will start on pinkies, frozen thawed, mm-hmm. without any extra procedures. And I'm like, that's pretty good. That sounds great. That's a step.
That's really good. Yeah.
And so she has multi-generation. It's hard because the females take a long time to grow up, a long time. Mm-hmm. But she's doing it, and I'm like, good job. So if anybody wants she does ground boas mostly now. She had Aspera, but I think one of her key animals passed away, and so she decided to disseminate the rest of the project. But hers are nice.
Yeah.
I just like that they're reasonably sized. So it's very mm-hmm. easy to be like, this isn't a ball python, but it is very ball python sized, and it looks like not a colubrid. Because some people are like, if it's colubrid, it's too skinny, and it just blows their fucking mind.
Yeah.
At a show, they're like, it's a worm. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's a snake. But at least they're I don't know, thicker than a colubrid, but still not mm-hmm. a ball python. That's what I like about them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How well do rosy boas do? Because when I was in the Pacific Northwest, we never saw rosy boas ever anywhere in a show. But here, I see a reasonable amount. Do they sell well to pet people here? Or are they still weird about it?
Honestly, I do see a few move. But the rosies I currently have are not mine. I didn't breed them. I have an older friend that kind of looking to retire, and he's thinking about moving to Belize.
Oh, that sounds fun.
I need to kind of liquidate some of this collection. So if you'll take them for me. So yeah, that's kind of how I wound up with 3 female northern blue-tongued skinks too. And took them to NERBC, Dallas. And the more I started handling them and messing with them, I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is going anywhere. So I just I don't know when I'm going to be able to pay you. And he's like, yeah, we'll work it out. Don't worry about it. He said, so he brought me some big cages over that he custom built for him. And they're setting up in my snake room. And really, really enjoy messing with those now. So But I've kind of messed with, I mean, when I kind of got into it and had snakes, I had aquatic turtles.
Mm-hmm.
I had, box turtles and Russians and Greeks and leopard tortoises. Had a couple different aquatic turtles, a snake neck. I had pictus geckos and leopard geckos and bearded dragons. I've kind of played around with a lot of it and just kind of stuck that my niche was snakes. I was successful in breeding snakes.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of just stuck with that. But I've always had a fascination for different stuff. And now that I'm getting older and it's like, well, maybe it's time and, got some space and a little bit of land to kind of do some different stuff, to venture to do more than just snakes and more other snakes than just, ball pythons.
Right.
I always have the carpets, but incorporate some other species as well. So like I said, I really love to get back into calibars at some point.
Do you think you'll like change the percentage of ball pythons in your collection and go down to like your favorite projects, or do you
Absolutely.
think you'll just go get out of it, or
I won't ever get out. My hardest thing now is I've got so much stuff that I have bred that's kind of project that I would like to see those to fruition before I sell off.
Right.
And, you're getting stuff together for shows and you're doing this. You're like, okay, I got this, this, and this. I can't really sell that because that's tied up to a project. Got this. But once you get the one animal, then you can go ahead and move 3 or 4 out or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I've got a shot. I just got a clutch yesterday from Clown. Well, the original parents were Clown to a definite head Xanthic, VPI Xanthic. Okay. So the babies were they were normal, but they were het Clown, possible Xanthic. So I kept a reverse trio. Mm-hmm. Had all the little, Xanthic markers on them, or het Xanthic. So I got a clutch, hoping for Xanthic Clowns. And if I do, I've got a whole reverse trio of animals for sale.
Mm-hmm. Have you gotten into testing? Shed testing?
I haven't done it yet. I would probably do it a lot with babies and stuff that I produced this year, because I kind of did projects that would be possible het for this or something, where the genetic testing would go ahead and let me know. Whereas these I've already raised up to adults, sitting there trying to do the genetic testing on those now. I don't know. I don't think it would work for me to do it now that I've raised them up to adulthood. Just to
if you already have
go ahead and breed them, I get stuff. I either get it or I don't. Then it may be worth say, okay, let's go ahead and do the genetic test on these.
Yeah, it changes things in some ways for the better, in some ways for the worse. But like, you almost, to me, you got to do it a little bit, because you just like, it's like I have multiple clutches where they're like 100% het one gene, 50% het the other ones. I would only want the females that are 100% both. I'll just separate them when they hatch, and then like send the shed off right when they're hatching, and then I'll already know. I don't have to wait.
And you just move those other ones on out. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye. See you later. But my problem is I the percentage of ball pythons in my collection is too high. It's too easy to be like, I'll keep this project, I'll keep that project. So I'm always like, this is 120 ball pythons that could be 120 of something else. And I don't know if I want to get rid of all of it, but I have to always I need to be mean to myself this year and make myself sell stuff.
You've almost got to kind of force yourself into it. Okay, I'm going to start moving some of these out, and then a new gene, and it doesn't happen very often for new genes to hit the market, but there will be combinations of stuff that, oh, wow, I really like that. Who would have really thought spot nose would really kick off as much as it has now, when it's done the combination with leopard and clown? When it was just spot nose, it was like, oh, okay, it's spot nose. I mean, the price was going way down on them until it hits that right combination, and then everything skyrockets. Vanilla was kind of, way down there. Now it's kind of coming back, but spot nose really just set it off. Red stripe. I mean, at the time, red stripe was like, oh, cool, you can make the red devil, or you can do it hypo. But now the combination with spot nose and leopard and clown, it's like, okay, you got to kind of have red stripe, you know.
What are you like? I don't know. Sucked into the ball python thing where like everything has to be double visual hit 10 things. You know, like are you like sucked into that, or are you like pretty happy just working your projects and buying or trading for one or two things here or there? Because a lot of times I'm like, well, I buy this thing and it's $3,000, but like nobody really cares when it really comes down to me selling what I bought, because it doesn't look that nice anyway, because it's just triple het or whatever.
Yeah. I would say it's kind of a mix. I've got stuff that I like kind of working towards, and everybody wants to be the first guy, the first woman, you know, to hit the whatever combination, world's first, right? But sometimes some of these combos, you're like, wow, I'm glad I didn't waste my time on that project. You know, you can kind of look at it and it's like, okay, they didn't turn out like I would have expected or liked. So now I don't have to pursue and go down this rabbit hole. I could go somewhere else and put my time, effort, or animals into a different project. So sometimes not being a first is a blessing in disguise.
Yeah,
but yeah, absolutely. I want to try to downsize them. It's just like you got so many projects and stuff tied up, and I've got these, you know, nice full combinations I can do different stuff with. That, I mean, I still got one of my original hypo females. I just love her. I've got a bunch of different hypo this and that. Same thing with a butter female I have. I bought from Neil Goley way back in the day. And turns out she's het hypo and het albino. Het hypo by his breeding, het albino by mine.
Oh.
And
is she? Do you know how old she is?
I bought a butter male, and it's the first female I produced.
All right. Do you know how old she is? Like how many years?
Oh wow, she's got to be 10, 11.
All right, cool.
Something like that.
Keep her forever.
Yeah, I just love her color.
Fun.
I mean, you could get all these other combinations, but sometimes just the base, like a base morph, like it's just so, I mean, I love the gold color, the blushing and everything on her, and good feeder, you know, hard to just move them out for next to nothing.
Yeah,
like I could not sell her for the price that I would get in the market currently. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Isn't that like, I don't know, unfair in some ways? Like these females, they're good females. They're healthy. They eat, they're nice. But like, because there are too many ball pythons overall, these ones are no longer desirable to the point that they're, I don't know, not worth anything basically, except for to like a really, really intro breeder. But then it's like, you can't keep all of them forever. You got to make cuts somewhere. It's really hard, like emotionally, to grapple with that part to me.
It is. You know, I look at it as like I could have a little bit more space for carpets or, you know, different projects. Like I said, now that I'm getting these blue tongue skinks, I'm gonna need a few more. And might have some cages, and you know, I want to work a little bit more with some of the Russian rats I have, and you've got some stuff that we've talked about that like I would like adding, but takes cage space. And so it's like what goes in order to have something else come in. It's almost getting to that point where the only way I can keep something more is something's got to go. Well, the only way I can buy something else is something's got to go. So it's kind of where, you know, the Japanese rats, like I produced them for several years, and as often happens when you work with live animals, you come home or wake up one day and go out and just something that's passed away for no apparent reason. And so I lost my male Japanese, and so I just had the lone female. And it was, well, do I either buy another male and raise up and continue working with the Japanese, or sell it off and either buy pure Kunasur Island at some point, or just say, been there, done that. You know, I bred them, successful, did a couple years. Let me go to another project. And so that's what I chose to do. So
Yeah.
I have actually just sold the last.
Baby.
No, I didn't. I think I still have one baby Japanese male left. But sold the female last month at a show in Kansas. So I'll be producing no more Japanese rats. Unless later down the road I decide to get Cooners, but I'm tied up in Asian stuff now. So
it is hard. Like once you've had a collection for a while, like you can sort of become disinterested in a species. Not that bad, not to the point you're not taking care of them or whatever, but you're just like, I need room for something else. And so that's fine. That's probably a natural part of keeping. But then like there are people who like do that really fast, and that like concerns me sometimes. Like they were just interested in balls. They sold all their balls. They got into bloods. They're like, bloods are hard to sell. They sell all their bloods. They get into chondros. Like, maybe it's just like a different personality, but I'm always like, don't you like, I don't know. It's like more of like a grieving process. I feel like there's some people are so fast how they turn over whole species. I'm like, wow.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that. Somebody brought up, I was talking about Jim Mason, and Bebo's Barms popped up years back when we were all kind of running together and started, and the ball python craze was really starting to kind of kick up, right? And I knew people that were selling all their carpet pythons, and they were getting the ball pythons, and they're selling all their retics, and they're getting into ball pythons. And, I will never forget, I want to say it was either 2003 or 2004, but it was one of the shows that Mike and Bob did before NARBC took over. Mojave males on Saturday were 15,000. That Saturday night, and I want to say it was Morph King. I don't think the company exists anymore, but they were in Oklahoma City. Hatched the clutch of Mojave to Mojave to produce the first Blue Eye Lucy. That Sunday, male Mojaves were $23,000. I seen it jump. I was right there, right? And so we were seeing people selling out. And so I told these guys that were doing retics and Burmese and different stuff, corn snakes, don't get rid of your stuff, hold it, keep them, keep breeding them. Sooner or later, this is all going to come down, and they're going to want to get back into, and you hold your price. I'm not going to give you a discount on these carpets now. This is the price I have. This is the price you're going to pay if you want to get back in. You just got to kind of stick with it. And I mean, I saw a lot of people get out and rush on that, the ball python wagon. And it was.
Do you think that burns them out? Like, because they had like a steady species. They knew the price. They knew the market. They jump onto like a species that they don't know because they think it's big money. And maybe it is. But then like, aren't they more likely to get out all the way after that? Because they like, I don't know, blew their load on like a speculation purchase instead of like the steady. Because none of those people are still around, really. But if they'd like, I don't know, kept breeding Amazon tree boas for the last 20 years, but maybe added balls for one cage, wouldn't that be better?
Yeah. I mean, we did, I think COVID money, it got a lot of people happy, but then it also kind of messed some stuff up. So I know of one of the girls friends with, she's actually been approached by a guy, right? So he sitting at home, you got all this COVID money, you bought a bunch of snakes, you bought a rack. And of course, if you had this money and you're trying to buy multiple snakes, you're probably trying to get a good deal on them. We all do. Nothing wrong with trying to get a good deal. But you get a deal on these snakes, you raise them up, you breed them, then you're trying to sell them, and then everybody wants to try to get a good deal or Jew you down. And you're frustrated because you can't move them. So then you trying to sell everything, snakes, racks, the babies, everything. This is the price I want for everything. Like you completely got out because you got in it for the wrong reason. You didn't get in it for the love of the animals. And because honestly, what are we? We're poop cleaners.
Yeah.
When it boils down to it, that's really what we do. That's what we do, So if you're not in it for being able to take care of the snake and watch it thrive and watch it breed and just the different interactions. I mean, even when I'm watching with the blue tongue skinks, it's more of just an interaction with the animal and not really even looking at trying to breed them right now. That I just want money. And so when you looked at it as a money and a dollar sign, the fact that stuff's coming down in price, it's like, oh, I don't want to work with them now. I can't move them. Well,
right, which is why it's like concerning when someone is not really that interested in the next species they're jumping into. Because you're like, you're going to do the same thing next year. Because like hognose are going to get hosed.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, hognose are still worth something and whatever. They're just going to hose those too or whatever. I don't know. That's the vibe I get. Yeah.
It is. It happens, but I guess it's just part of the hobby.
Yeah. Do you think the economy, the reptile economy, was worse during the 2008 financial crisis or now? Like price drop percentage? Because I've heard people be like, this one is worse, like in terms of percentage of drop than 2008. And I'm like, is it? I don't know.
I would say, without like really looking at figures, I would probably say it's worse now. You didn't have as many breeders in 2008 as you do now. I don't remember the price of a gallon of milk costing as much, just as an example now, like it would have then. I mean, yeah, money was tight back in 2008, but I don't think it was affected so much that so many people were affected on a day living that, and with multiple breeders, more snakes. You got to think that's been 12, 16 years of thousands of ball pythons being produced.
Yeah. And so like the
next combo,
Right. There's like a problem also where like the females that existed then hypothetically still exist now. Like some of them probably died from like twisted oviducts or illness or rat infections or whatever. But they live a long time. So the longer we go along, the more ball pythons exist total in the whole country. And so like that's good in some ways and bad in other ways. It's good because then more people could get in easier without spending a bunch for an adult female. But then like anyone can become a breeder instantaneously off of the back of a $75 female lesser or whatever, right? Like instantaneous making bells, instantaneous bananas or whatever the next season. So then like, is there a point where there are so many adults in the whole country that no morph combo can hold price for very long because it will all be relatively easier to make because we have so many adult females existing of all different genetic combos ready to plug and play a male in the next year over and over again. So is there any value in any ball python morph besides like $500? What do you think about that?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question, but I see them dropping quite a bit. I mean, like I said with the Mojave, I remember the first fire I held, Mike Wilbanks had. It was $40,000 for a male, and females were $60,000 because they'd already, through Eric Davies, it produced a black eye leucistic. So I mean, they weren't cheap. I mean, I was shaking holding that thing because I was like, this is $40,000 in my hand.
Right.
There was a lot of money. And so I was like, yeah, there's no way I can afford this. And then now get males for $30. Granted, it's been some years, but when you have a codom, that price has dropped on codoms more than it had recessives. I mean, it took pieds, albinos being one of the first ones, drop, but it was still a slower drop. And then when you start doing codom and sex link like banana, those things drop like a freaking lead bucket.
Right. I mean, Will Morose believes that with genetic testing, recessives will just be codoms behind a paywall. Like, we'll know exactly what everything is. So there's no, like, it is slightly harder to hit the homozygous form, but, like, still know what everything is. There's no guessing. There's no buying pos hets and hoping it proves. And so it's like we're going to lose value from recessives just being recessive. And so we may be needing to go back to like a codom world where it's just about the aesthetic of the animal, like whatever that means for people, like super blackhead hypopide or whatever. And you're like, oh, it's pretty.
But don't you think the codoms actually help drive it further south quicker? Recessive, you had to take time to kind of develop. So there was albino and genetic striping and pied, one of the first ones, before pastel kind of hit. And
right.
then,
I think the question will be like, will homozygosity be what is the valuable thing, not just the heads are worth nothing and the visual recessive is worth a lot. It's like a homozygous this, like blackhead or like an ALS, like spot nose blackhead or something, and clown, like that's two homozygous loci, and so it's more valuable because of that. Instead of just being like recessive is more expensive property than codom, because the difficulty is the same mathematically. And I'm like, sure, maybe, but like it's hard to sell people like some things that are technically hard to hit, right? Like a super black, I mean, maybe not super blackhead, but like a super vanilla hypo inchy pastel or something. That's a 2 gene recessive kind of, right? Like a 2 gene homozygous plus 2 codoms.
So like an albino clown.
Yeah, it should be kind of expensive. It's not. You know what? It's a couple $100 or something.
Well, yeah, it's come down because there's been more produced. Once it got easier to get one, then you breed to a double hit, then it's easier. You got a better odds of getting it producing more. So, kind of like the Grail project, that was still fairly high, and it's coming down quite a bit now. So,
yeah. It's not clear to me what about any ball python project will make it expensive ever. Again, because things will be easier and easier to hit with genetic testing. So like it might be expensive for a season or two, but we're not going to have these long stretches of time where the same morph is like a combo is $5,000. It's going to drop right away because we'll absolutely be able to hit it with the highest probability the next year, make 5 more, and the next year make 100 more. And so, of course, they'll drop. What do you think of that?
Oh, I see it. I don't know if they've got it for some of, like, say, Sunset. I imagine, it won't be like, hey, I can get this deal on all these POS hits, and you hope to hit a Sunset like they're normals or pastels, and you just, genetic testing, you know exactly what your hits are and produce it. I would love to see it, and I know they're working at it, but more for, I like the sex determination that, hopefully blue tongue skinks, they're going to be able to do the sex determination. So you don't have to raise it for a year and a half and find out, oh, great, another female. I still don't have a male, or vice versa. And, then what you kind of have growing up, or green tree pythons, where most breeders will not sex them until they're at least a year old because their tails are so fragile. So, hey, if I can go and get the shed test, boom, I already know I got a male. I don't have to raise it for a year and a half and then find out, great, the one I thought was a male, now I've got 2 females and I can't do anything with. So then I got to go either buy an adult male or get another one and raise up. So it will help, but I could also see it, like you said, shaving time off projects. But I think in the long run, but that's just the market anyway, supply and demand. Stuff that gets easier to make, it's going to come down in price, almost to the point like the new normal is a clown. Yeah.
Like a pied. Pieds aren't super expensive either at this point.
Yep. Pretty far down there.
Yeah, a lot of people get mad at me because I talk a lot of shit about ball pythons, even though I keep them and like them. But I think a future where most ball pythons are $500, if they're nice ones, is kind of good. You means people will focus on selective breeding because that will be the difference between a $500 one and a $700 one, and most of them are $100. And who cares, right? That would be a final solution for the
Yeah, go to a selective breeding, and that's where we had talked about the carpets earlier. That's kind of what I did when I schools off because nobody was selectively breeding coastals, and so I started working with those, and breed for color, breed for pattern, and then you start keeping some of them babies back, and then you just keep jumping on it. And now we're getting some really nice looking coastals from stripes to a lot more intense reds where they're holding the red into adulthood longer. And you can tell it's a red into adulthood versus the original stuff. You really like, okay, it's just a little different shade of brown. You couldn't really tell, but now they're getting where, they're really phenomenal animals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hivis kind of agrees. I just think people are right this second using morph breeding and genetic testing to like just increase the speed to which they hit a combo, which is fine because they have like a financial incentive to do that. I just think we'll get there faster to like every ball python is $200 to $500 because we'll just make only the best ones and then the supply and demand will kick in.
Yeah.
And that's like a controversial statement because some people are like, there must always be a high-end ball python market. And I'm like, I'm not sure if there must be. There could be, but I don't know.
Well, in essence, it's kind of like a pyramid scheme.
Mm-hmm.
First one that gets in makes the money, and then it kind of trickles down. But all of it is. I mean,
right. Even rare species are a pyramid scheme in their own way too, because like they have to get more common as you promote the species.
Yep.
And they become cheaper.
The palmetto corn was done a little different. I'm trying to think, like the pod. I don't really know much on the corn genetics with the pod and how that came about, but somebody had to get it, produce a couple, sell them. Then over time, more supply, price went down. The sooner you get in, you paid money, but the more you make long term,
Right. Which is, and it's fine. I just think people are hung up on the idea that ball pythons there will be some percentage of the ball python market that will always be really expensive. And I'm like, potentially a new gene or combo won't, make people's skirts fly up. And then it just will become more common. Nothing new will be happening. And so we'll go back to it being just like another kind of cool snake with some morphs.
Mm-hmm.
That could happen eventually. I think some people like ball pythons are dead. No one's going to want them. I don't think that's true at all. By the way, people like ball pythons a lot at shows, especially.
Yeah. I mean, for what they are, and like you said, we both keep them. We both kind of half talk bad about them, and it's just the market's flooded with them. It is,
right?
And they're not as an interactive species as a lot of the other stuff we work with. Granted, we've got them in tub racks, so it's I don't really have it on display, but you take somebody that buys it at the show, they wanted a snake, and well, you're going to have to put a hide over here on the hot spot, and hide on the cool spot, and you're not going to see that snake during the day. You have to wait till the sun goes down, then you're going to see it. Whereas a carpet, you're generally going to see, maybe not all day, but they're going to be out. Corn snake's going to be out. Rosy boa might be out. Kenyan, probably under the dirt most of the time, so you really won't see them. But and then they just sit there, So if it's like, hey, I just want a snake that watches TV with me, whatever, ball python.
A lot of people love that. That's like their number one thing they want.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I need a Netflix and chill snake ASAP, and I'm like, great, you've picked a great snake.
And that's it. So they've got their good things about them. They're not all bad, but when you want to advance your reptile experience, your husbandry techniques, it's past ball pythons. It becomes carpets or Burmese, because now you've got a larger snake to deal with. Well, you can go further. Let's get something that nobody really plays with as much: white lip pythons, scrub pythons. Let's get scrubs that nobody really breeds, Hares. There's been some success over the last few years. Haven't seen any Moluccans really in the scene in many years. You see tenon bars, and Eric Chacon has had some success with those, but you just don't see much of them because it's like, okay, this is a more advanced species. There is a little bit. Like I knew a guy that was doing the Burmese, and he wanted to do some scrubs. And then when he got into it, and he's like, oh, they just don't breed like Burms do. Because you can walk in and clean cages, Burmese will sit, breed, and everything. Scrubs don't do that. Mm-hmm. They become very shy. Like, oh, nope, can't have nobody watch. And so it's like, okay, I'm not getting anything done. And so he, just had to move those on. Because it was just the way what he was used to with the Burmese and stuff. It just didn't work for him that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do hope everyone doesn't downvote this episode like they do every time we talk about ball pythons. We both keep them and we both like them, but maybe not your entire collection. Let's just
yeah, it's just something about having variety.
Yeah, it makes life more fun. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I also like the cost of a lot of ball pythons is below the cost of production also. So to get them to sell means I have to lose money. So if that is any sort of evidence for anybody of what kind of ball pythons they should be breeding, it should be ones that are at least slightly more expensive or more desirable than the cost of production.
Sean Bradley of Ball Shit Podcast, Xotics by Nature, many different little hats he's had. Years ago, it was him or somebody else, and I know he put it out, but he did like a cost analysis for raising ball pythons. And I want to say it was $11 or $17. Like if you sold below that, you were losing money.
It's probably more like $70 right this second.
Well, now rodents and everything's cost more, but this has been 10, 12 years ago, I think, when he did it. And at that time, because you get normal males at the show for like $10, or somebody was just trying to get rid of them. Here, $5, and they were gone. You're losing money because at the time your parents raised them up, food intake, heat, electricity, all that stuff. He figured all of it into it. Was $11 or $17. It was one of the two. Mm-hmm. If you sold below that, you were actually losing money.
Yeah, that's why people do give me grief for breeding corn snakes because they have suffered from the same kinds of problems. Like they're kind of common, and people don't necessarily like them unless they're like either a true pet person or like really weirdly into corn snakes like me. But I'm like, the production on a corn snake is almost nothing, and like the carrying cost is almost nothing. So like, it's fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
The parents eat a food item that costs 20 cents. If you get a big wholesale frozen mouse package, it doesn't cost anything. But a ball python takes a lot more inputs in the parents and the babies cost-wise.
Because you also wind up with smaller clutch sizes.
Yeah, so you need the baby to be worth more money. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying, to like cut the cost. But
yeah.
Doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you get a bunch of super normals. Even though you read like nice stuff to nice stuff, you could have gotten a $10,000 clutch, but you got a bunch of normal males, and you're like, this is awesome.
We joke. There's a friend of mine. You met him, Norman. He there for a while. He would have clutches. Didn't matter what it was. It would all normals. He would hatch that normals. So we just call them super normals. I mean, it was like, really, my luck. I just hatched out freaking super normals.
He should make it a shirt. Got any super normals ready to breed?
But he got rid of all the snakes. For the most part, he does, bearded dragons, Pac-Man frogs, gargoyles, and crusties.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. He was the one next to me this last weekend on Saturday.
Yeah. How's he doing with bearded dragons? Sometimes there are no bearded dragon vendors at some shows. I do like 0, and I'm like, are bearded dragons just that hard to take care of?
Not really. It just
Or sell, or they make too many babies, or like, what's the problem here?
I don't know. I think it goes back to, hey, ball pythons are cheap and easy to keep.
Yeah.
You know,
And maybe you can't sell beardeds fast enough.
Well, you know, with bearded dragons, you have UVB lights that you get the nice bulbs. You got to have high heat. Every 6 months at least, you should be replacing the bulb.
Mm-hmm.
It's at $60, $70. Like most of the snakes we keep, we don't need special lights or anything. They have a heat panel, heat mat, flex watt, whatever, in a tub. You're good. You don't need all that extra stuff. Leopard geckos, you don't need it. Cresties, you don't really need it. But when you start going in species like Uromastics, high heat UVB, so it becomes more expensive just to keep and maintain outside of price.
I might keep
have a lot more where bigger clutches, more common. People are selling them. It's just, I guess, hit and miss. I mean, I've gone to shows where everybody's looking for rainbow boas and nobody's really producing some.
Yeah, what is up with that? I've been asked that a ton, and I'm like, no, I don't. None are here, and also, you probably don't need one because you need to be ready to do high humidity type action. And they're like, I love pets, and I'm like, go get something else because they're gonna kill it.
Yep.
In my opinion, don't fire me, right? Like certain influencers, let's put it that way, will promote a species and be like, whatever, it's a great species, but it's like, because their audience is gullible and stupid and mostly children or whatever, like they get it in their head that they need something like a I don't know, a sunbeam snake or something. And then they get down in the like sunbeam snake wild caught rabbit hole or the rainbow boa, and they nerf that right away, or white lips, or it's just something they don't need yet. They could be ready for it, but not yet. So like whenever anybody asks me for that and I like look at them and I'm like, you're 12. Who are you watching on TikTok or whatever? Yeah. Here's a corn snake or something. Like,
just like I've seen, there's a particular breeder I know that he sells a species of snake. And if somebody comes up looking for another species, because he only sells one, he will not direct them to people that he knows and respects. He'll try to sell them his species of snake.
Oh.
So, you know, if I'm at a show.
Negging the other species?
Do what?
Like negging the other species they asked about?
Kind of.
I mean, I guess that's
so. Like, if
I'm
at a show and I don't have hognose, but somebody's looking for one, I'm going to direct them to people I know and trust at the show that I'm at that has some.
You don't do like a little bit of
Tom Harbin's there. He's getting the hognose business. I'm sending them to Tom Harbin, right? If back in the day, Brian Hummel used to do rainbowboas.com. If he was there and somebody was looking for rainbow, I'm going to send them. I'm not going to say, oh, you don't want this. This is why my species of snake is better. Like, they know for the most part what they were looking for. Let them go talk to that person. And then he'll determine, hey, you know, you're not ready for this hognose, rainbow boa, whatever. You just have to try to sell them. Like, if they weren't looking for that, then don't. You know,
but usually they're asking me if I have rainbow boas or something, because I have boas. And they're like, do you have any? And I'm like, no. Usually I just send them on their way, but sometimes they're like literal children. And I'm like, do you want to buy one today? Are you an adult? Supervision here? I don't know. It just feels like sometimes it's like a social media trend and has less to do with them actually like having a genuine interest in it, which is fine because that's how people get interested, is they get like a little taste online or something, or they see a picture and then maybe they become a good keeper. But I don't know. Like I don't lecture the sulcata people when they ask me if I have any turtles. I also think that's completely fucked up, psycho, to sell kids sulcatas. But whatever, I'll keep that one to myself.
Well, yeah, I know somebody else that's doing particular species of snake to young kids as well, and it's not ball python. It's something different that I just don't think 6-year-old kids need to have as a pet.
Does it rhyme with metic? Petic.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
It's more of a species I work with that I'm kind of known for.
Oh.
And
To
I just
kids?
don't.
I don't know if any kid should have anything without strict adult supervision until they're like 15 or something. What do you think about that theory?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with like corn snakes. Like it's, hey, this is my, but are you going to be around? You set rules
I don't
that, hey,
think
you cannot
a
mess.
child should be independently in charge of a corn snake either. Kids are stupid.
That you can't get in and mess with it until I'm there, because that's what you need is a loose corn snake in the house.
Oh my God, right away. Or they don't close the lid right. Gone. Gone. Never getting it back.
I agree. I think there's some people that aren't even ready for ball pythons too. Yeah,
it's I don't know. It is hard. Like, I don't mean to nag people sometimes at a show, but sometimes it just comes out. I'm just like a bitch or autistic or something. I don't know. But sometimes they're like coming up to me. Like, I get a lot of requests for Vietnamese blue beauties. And I'm like, okay, I know where they got that from. But I'm like, have you ever had a snake before? No. Do you? Is that really the first one you really want? Yes. I'm like, good luck then.
Yeah, that's not a beginner snake.
No, but they think it is because of social media influencers being like, this is a fun blue snake. And I'm like, it's a racer, basically. You want a racer? Yes.
Or somebody's looking for mangrove snakes. And it's like, yeah, I mean, now hognose are kind of an exception because they are rear fang venomous, but it's like they're hognose. You get a mangrove, that's a whole different thing, and like, are you prepared to know that this thing is rear fang venomous? You can have some reaction to it. Hognose is like, yeah, for them to really bite, it does happen. I don't want to belittle that. It does happen. But chances of getting bit by one is still rare.
Mm-hmm.
You get a mangrove.
Or like the Rufus Peaks. Those ones people have reactions to all the time. But people buy them like they're not rear fang venomous and play with them. I don't know. There's a lot of weird. What's that?
Which snake?
Rufus Peak snakes.
I really started looking into them, and I was like, I kind of like those. And then I found
out they're cool.
Like, no, that's the reason they're not as popular in the hobby.
Right, but people would get them, and I don't know. I mean, we can complain about like people not being ready enough, and I don't know if anybody's fully ready ever, but I don't know. I will autistically tell somebody if they're asking me if I have something and they think it's, or if it's even at the show, and I'm like, I don't think it's at the show, but maybe like this is a better alternative for your family or something. Mm-hmm. I in some places I get a lot of, like, Shawnee always asks for rosy boas, even though I don't know, sometimes they're not there. Mm-hmm. So that's a market. But in Texas, in the last couple of shows, it's been a lot of rainbow boas, and I'm like, where's this coming from? I don't even know. All right, we did it. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you to talk about snakes, and what do you have either available now or coming up that they could maybe be interested in buying?
All right. Find me on Facebook, Python and Pear Tree. I'm also on Instagram at Python Pear Tree. Mm-hmm. Find me at a lot of the HRP shows in Texas, Lone Star, a lot of the shows between Dallas and Louisiana. Any luck, in about 2.5 weeks, should have a clutch from my dwarf perm female. So I should have some pure dwarfs. I actually have a clutch of children's pythons hatching out as we speak. Ooh. I saw one pipping out of the egg earlier, and I'm going to go out and check them here in just a little bit. I've got some albino Darwins and hets incubating as well. Should have some red coastal soon. Hoping for some nice Waco mountain gray bands and river road gray bands, along with more Kansas glossy snakes from Brewster County locality, Texas, and a couple of different hognose and maybe even some Arizona Mountain Kings. So always going to be a surprise, something different.
I meant to talk about the glossies. We'll have to save that one for like next time.
Yeah.
If you want to come back. That's a cool, weird project too. We'll save it for colubrid time.
Real quick didn't see anything but wild caught at shows. I had a friend in West Texas. He was always catching some. I said, send me some. I just want locality. Mm-hmm. And so in Brewster County, he actually sent me the GPS coordinates if I wanted it. But I said, cool, I'm good with just county. And got them acclimated and successfully produced last year. So hoping for 2 clutches this year. I got 2 females.
Yeah, and there's a lot of snakes in this country that we ignore a lot.
Yep.
Even though we probably don't really need to. Like, I can't wait to get Flaviflora. I keep seeing just like lone males, and I'm like, this is lame. Well, one of these days. All right, bye, chat. Thanks for coming. If you need to buy any dwarf berms, hit up Mike. Bye. See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.